Rashidele Rinpoche, good morning, Yoga Dele. Please unmute Rinpoche's Zoom. Tenimara Rinpoche ke zone de Kegant go Jagido, they go Serochida. This Rinpoche's zone is on mute. Please, someone open the Rinpoche's zone is on mute.
It is unmuted.
Can you hear us now?
I think it's GBI.
Can you hear me, Kempo?
Maybe can you do the unmute Rinpoche?
I can hear.
Can you hear me?
I can hear Ina. We could hear Rinpoche before, but I'm not hearing anything now. But he is unmuted. I'll take it. I'm sorry, maybe it's a GBI Buddha stream. Does that need to be unmuted? That's not unmuted.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, Kokomada Rinpoche ke song Kohomodo.
Oh, Jacob Soson, you pay the Linkir Bojazo, and with the Litsamal Joke,
Kokomada Rinpoche.
Tajakala Joke, some territory.
We cannot hear, right?
We can
people
hear now.
Can you hear?
We could be a minute ago, but then it's faded.
So you could hear me,
He
but not
is unmuted.
Rinpoche?
GBI Buddha stream and Garchen Institute are both
It's all the same, right?
not muted.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear? Could you hear Rinpoche? Okay. Right.
Wow.
So Rinpoche said to all the Dharma friends in the Sangha, especially Kien Rinpoche, everyone around the world, good morning. And all the Sangha who is joining in the live stream, and Ashidele, Namo Sangaya.
The Changsa Kali number Sangaya dinner. Zambe Lingi, Chilok, you say what have you? Chilok the only the Sangari. So someone to the Changsa Lori.
Namo Sangaya means to prostrate. I prostrate to all the Sangha, and actually everyone in the world who has a religion is actually a Sangha. So it's an homage, a prostration to all the Sangha.
저런 포화시바데다 기록 망실의 요래 상하나 이 포화시바들이 축구 포화, 롱구 포화, 축구 포화서 포화 남았음 섬리 이 대시에 영나들이 다다 땅에서 뭐하가를 출가래나들이 참아들이 출탕지 포화해 포사 가래해 되는 포화가 남나서고 세지다지 나기 인진이당 될지니 로가를 줘라 참대 바탕지 들이 포사 강래해 되는 들이 내가 도리좀 들이 제일 많이 들이 사실 것은 그 시간 닦고 시간 들이 다 맞아 니가 냠대요 봐들이 죽고 시간 들이 잡아들이 나발링은 매열되더니 물을 못 채대 죽고 시간이 제가 시간이 제가들이 다 맞아 니 요리 때까지 들이 남을 레지 사바데 중량 무슨 몇개 통하는 봐 통치지요 봐 대신 감는 시간 초로 차디 요리 중량 무슨 들이라고 면 통로 봐 얘네들이 나발링도 죽고 시간이
So today, Dharma friends, I'm going to share a few words on the Phowa, the transference of consciousness. And generally, first of all, Phowa exists in, not that the teachings on Phowa exist in all the different lineages or traditions. And now we say that there are three kinds of Phowa, broadly speaking. And that is the Dharmakaya Phowa, the Sambhogakaya Phowa, and the Nirmanakaya Phowa. And actually, generally, no matter what Dharma we practice, sutras or the tantras, no matter any religion, any Dharma, anything that we practice is in a sense also a Phowa, which is a transference. So who transfers? It's all the sentient beings who are sunk in the swamps of samsara because they grasp at the duality of self and other. So they wander in the 6 realms of samsara. So they are the ones that need to transfer. And then what is the destination of transference? Temporarily, it is rebirth in the 3 higher realms, and ultimately one transfers into the Pure Lands, the nature of the Buddha's 3 kayas. And then we have the Nirmanakaya Pure Land, where the pure and the impure coexist. For example, this world, this planet, Jambudvipa, our human world here, where we live as precious human beings, is actually a Nirmanakaya Pure Land, where the pure and the impure coexist. And the reason why it actually is the most supreme Pure Land, this world is the supreme Nirmanakaya Pure Land, it's because in this world we can directly see the workings of karma, cause and effect. So that's why this world is the supreme Nirmanakaya Pure Land.
등에 당이 제타봐 오 등에 저기 바닥에 오래시 내가 내 산속설에서 말해시 내가 산속설 야수 등에서 막용 이 탑대 용을 오 내가 대자고 나와 타고 요래 너는 포화지 받더니 동네게 내리래발 내는 로아지 그래서 나버리는 맨날 빠지 차잖아 오 들이 라왕 메비 작업들 라왕 요비 작업을 마통 제동제들이 어서 나그래 그래서 대서는 포화지 고아되는 포화지 되라고 그래지 나 등이 강하게 되지 등이 메사들 판 로고도 혹시 그랬다 봐서 고아 차고 그래지
So in this world, this human world, also sentient beings, of course, are, even though it is a Nirmanakaya Pure Land, we are also, sentient beings are also sinking in the swamps of samsara. And as human beings, for example, we experience a lot of suffering, especially the suffering of birth, aging, sickness and death, and so forth. And then we experience the suffering of accumulating things and then protecting them and increasing them. There's a lot of suffering in samsara. So here in this human world, we have an opportunity to turn away from the attachment to samsara, to turn our mind toward the Dharma and to enter the path of liberation. And by, for example, becoming ordained and taking vows, the three kinds of vows of Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattvas, and the Vajrayana. And for example, even if you take the refuge vow, whatever vow you take, it actually also is a phowa. It also is a transference in a sense. Because basically anything that is beneficial is a phowa, is a transference. So we recognize, for example, that in samsara there is only suffering, and we suffer from accumulation, from protecting our wealth and increasing it and so on, and renouncing all of that. People, for example, seclude themselves to an isolated mountain hermitage or a retreat and so on, or a monastery, and practice there, and focusing their body and their mind on practice. And in that way, they accomplish the benefit of others and themselves. And actually that too is actually phowa in a sense. Because after their life is coming to an end and they are transferring to the next life, they are transferring to a better place. So normally, what we consider to be phowa, most people think that phowa is when somebody dies and then the consciousness transfers. So people associate phowa with somebody's death. But it's not only that actually. Phowa or transference basically means to transfer from a place of suffering to a place of happiness. And then to find a method to do that and to use the opportunity to do so, that is also a transference, a phowa. For example, if you're receiving the refuge vow today, then you learn that all suffering comes from your own mind, and you accept whatever suffering you experience, and you know that I am purifying my negative karma. And you also learn that all happiness comes from a mind of bodhicitta. So then, with this knowledge, you will develop bodhicitta and you will purify negative karma, your suffering. So it is a skillful means, it is a method to attain liberation. And so we can say that any method to attain liberation really is actually a phowa practice, a transference, because phowa or transference really means to transfer from a place of suffering to a place of happiness. And for example, we even see that in this world in just a mundane sense. There are some countries who experience more freedom, independence, and then there is other countries that have less freedom, less independence, and then we can see the striving towards independence. There's a general striving into this particular direction. So people generally strive to be independent and free. And that's also a transference, so from from being controlled to independence, from suffering to happiness. Basically, this is how we should understand the meaning of Phowa. We experience difficulties, we experience suffering, we are in a place of suffering, and we are transferring to a place where there is no suffering, where there is well-being. So this is how we can also understand this term Phowa or transference.
동해 강에 마자리 다 동해 침보 연구요래 제가 난지라서 봐. 얘들이 동해 탐지에 대한 타로 보고를 이 산속 때문에 보고를 좀 보아서 이 사지 좀디가 보았다고 그러는데 누가 지양 뭐다시기와 보통 쪽과시라고 샘의 영상 던던 사지 때문에 라고 샘대 대화가 저거는 좀 좋고 그랬어. 동해에 다디지 동해에 나는 대요리 다디지 우리 대를 함지가 동해에 주고요리 이 산속에 이비를 놓는 서성들이 들이 람파라도 스마트 들이 들이라는들이 내가 토리게 되어서 타속 사지적 공방 토바들이 되라 타속 사지 토바 kopte 사지 포화가 좋대 단디게 나오 나와되는 오 때문에 일피고도 세지 삼지 닝지 살을 로테를 지금 포화가 좋도 되리 저 사속세는 포화데 단디랑이 인피를 로는 파도 놓고산지 인피 심리로 동해 말 다데도리 종자리 포타와 드니 용거요래 오 동해가 저와 단디리 단디를 로지는 탈리더니 사원이 동해가 사원데 다들이 뒤들이 선대 타는 이미를 올라가 솔로 이런 포화가 좋다마 대래 동은 뭐 포화 대래 그래서 다시 강매들이 대화들 대외 저상대 버렸지 잠들게 로르 생기 강장으로 와지래 선대 용이 르세 용이 될라 대화들 동에 이요래 대화들 대외 저지 강매들 삼티 종대 이 수거들이 시합 뒤쪽에 대화를 요래 내가 뒤를 다들 저희 포화 같이 모래서 레좀제 시바들이 좀제가 포화돼 다 다른 생고 다 이핑을 놓고 사족 생초를 못 지지 사족 생을 못 지고 뭐든 포화는 초다들이 좀 포화되다 대다고 싸우는 동물들이 다다니 포화 못들이 조금 요래 당시 쉽지 섭지 대화들이 좀 내가 적가래래 뭐 삼대리 내가 토리게 되어는 다소 사제에 공방 맞아 봐도 그 다음 토말기와 바드기와 소리성 바드기와들이 저 사람 몰라 사람이 되지 토말기와 사제에 공방 토바 다와서 산속샘데 산속샘 좀 포화 초다 봤지 내가 이거들이 대화도 대외 졌을 때 내가 다톡 네가 대화 좀 그래 포부 이제들은 적들이 보아 손나요 내가 어떻게 땀으로 생기고 요래 보아 강이 봐 땀도 생기대 대다고 보아 차들이 잡수 놓아 강래 되는 사지 좀 되지 사지 주다 계신 소리 사지를 가리를 앞서 다 추고 그래 추가래리 이피를 놓래 쌤들 단디마도 요 말이 단디지 니 보라더니 임신을 얻어 단디 요 말이 단디지 좀 치나 이미 좀 총로요 그래 임신을 얻어 좀 치나 단디 말이 총로 직접 쓰는 거래 대회는 가디는더니 라고 뜻이 파마당 때문에 생 마다 보이는 듯이 마법이 되어와는 정도 그 만남 하다냐 보다 삼지 사바체비 발마티가 받더니 사바는 얘기지 공고선 주더니 포화를 초대 따와서 싸우더니 저의 보아 다 산축성 공유세 은혜스님 보아는 초대래.
The Buddha himself, having realized the perfection, having accomplished the perfection of wisdom, he taught that now in this world, for example, human beings in this world, even though we are born in the higher realms, which is considered to be a realm where we experience more well-being, but still, even in such a world, we experience both happiness and suffering. We will never achieve only happiness. So even as precious human beings, we endure a lot of suffering, a lot of hardship. We never really separate from it. And many people experience a great suffering. And then, of course, there is the suffering of birth, of aging, of sickness and death, and so on. And so Phowa is to transcend all suffering, to go beyond all suffering. And that we can actually also call the causal Phowa, the Phowa of the cause, of creating the cause of transference. And the supreme cause is to cultivate bodhicitta. The Buddha had said that do not commit any wrong, perfectly practice virtue, completely tame your own mind. This is the Buddha's teachings. So the mind needs to follow, to transfer to the cause of happiness, the cause of virtue, and in this way go beyond, transfer from the cause of suffering, which is self-grasping. Naturally, the mere fact that there is self-grasping means that naturally there will be suffering. And on the other hand, if you cultivate bodhicitta, an altruistic mind, you transcend suffering. So with an altruistic mind as the basis, then we transfer by practicing the path of the 6 paramitas. And as a result, temporarily, we will experience the happiness of the higher realms and ultimately attain the state of enlightenment. So that's the supreme Phowa. So it is to transcend this notion of me, this self-grasping, and to replace that with a wish to benefit others, to separate from self-grasping. So when you feel great compassion for all sentient beings, that's the supreme Phowa. It's the bodhicitta Phowa that transcends self-grasping through the altruistic mind. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. This really is the root of Phowa practice. It is to recognize the seed of suffering. The seed of suffering is self-grasping. And that is what the mind needs to liberate itself from. And the best way to do it is through the altruistic mind. So the altruistic mind is the supreme Phowa, or it's the ultimate, the actual Phowa. We say that may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. All sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara have a mind. And because they have a mind, they also have a body. And because they have a body, they experience suffering and also some happiness. So what is the cause of even the slightest happiness? It is, of course, love. And the greater you love, the greater your wisdom, the greater your happiness, your well-being. So the causal Phowa is what's most important. And that is really the karma Phowa, the karma cause and effect Phowa. And that means to recognize the preciousness of altruism, the precious bodhicitta. So that really is the supreme Phowa. It's the causal Phowa that you should really think about carefully. This is really where Phowa practice begins. So we say, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Cause of happiness is love. When you have that cause, you will temporarily experience the happiness of the higher realms and ultimately attain enlightenment. It is virtues in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. It is virtues in the beginning When it first arises, we experience it gives us happiness, well-being, and it is virtuous in the middle, because beyond this life, as a result, we will take birth in the higher realms as gods and humans and experience happiness there. And it is virtuous in the end because it leads to final enlightenment. So bodhicitta is the supreme phowa, and it is the only cause of happiness, temporarily and also ultimately. And it is the foundation from where we actually begin any phowa practice, or any practice at all. So if you practice phowa in the very beginning, like with any other practice, we first must take refuge, and then we cultivate the motivation of bodhicitta. So when we take refuge, who do we take refuge in? The Buddha said that we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So what did the Buddha say? The Buddha taught the Dharma. And what is the Dharma? The Dharma is the altruistic mind. Right now, there is only self-grasping in our mind. And the antidote is the altruistic mind. And they are like mutually exclusive, which means when you cultivate an altruistic mind, then naturally there will be no self-grasping. And conversely, if you cultivate only self-grasping mind, there cannot be an altruistic mind. So they kind of cancel each other. Now one destroys the other naturally. So we cultivate love first, and we begin with remembering the kindness of loved ones, for example, our parents, anyone that has been very kind to one. That's why we always bring to mind the love between a mother and her child. And then we think that all sentient beings have been our mothers. So we cultivate love until love and compassion become immeasurable love and compassion. And that is the supreme phowa, or it is the causal phowa, the phowa of karma, or it is the bodhicitta phowa. The cultivation of bodhicitta is the supreme phowa practice.
Tabu samba chemi ba, teni ninja chemi ba, teni tanyam ga chemi ba, chemi jesi de sheke yori. Zidani, da zinja jibe, nu mongpa te la tangchi, chemi ba jedra, tsalleptra ta jen powari. Me te tawa teni chemi jegana powari la, me teni powa gogo marira, yinka te, shikam rangtang chakte yori. Te tawa shipar la, ta karichi gore dino, teni tata, Mosolani Soduma Song Pena, me song something just sounds happening. The Mogul, the draw, the Sena, Yada, Shedang, Yavat, me songs of the judge, Sena, Shedang, talk some rage. The rich is that also the book, the lady, the bring on some tongue, the break, some brands of this the After go back to the song, 무슨 통치스를 득들이 치지 와서 대양포를 득들이 치지는 딱 등에는 이제 너도 요 말이 빼나 라니 소리는 송바다에 다라 니바 중제 미제도 간다 다가 뭐 조지 난 니죠 그때 듣고는 다르니 바자셀라니 소 나는 니바 가양 메바 메주게 노토가 고탑 나딱 가리상살해지 땅가 대마세다 지 직진들이 많이 가요 때서 포 가리를 쪼가는나 로다와 같이 로고를 차라때 며칠 시간만 빼다 큰 약속한 거 좀 썰면들이 시간제요래 제라티니 초 많이 가요 포고 저작가리 많이 가요 포고 이제 후마살이 진행을 내가 저하게 저 고사 파티도 봐도 뒤에 지양 마마를 해지 마음을 접대 다들 relate 있어 딜레이트 참 코로나를 말이 그때다 이박가요 메시지요 말이 다다 데레스를 총항을 같이 속다 왔다지 당한 이박가야 메베들이 당한 총항을 당송세 데려서는 이 세당 때가 양달들이 냐와로 자사로 까 대림 포노고 준비 싫어 당하디 레상이 요리 양만 한 거지 That was in the bottom of the chocolate. Mamma kept it at the little. Or till later, Sanga, the hit of the less Sanga Yoris. Tatanga, Bakanga, Ming, Kornobaka, Matanga, young lady, so did she down the things and may bundle them at it, doing it Sango, something that the Gawagon, don't hate it. Well, nothing but Shakichi is similar and good. That is I took the similar Trump hole, Mr. Shedang Mevana. Shedang in the dealer, Tanyawa, Jayanta, Yanta Dokoyori, Yawan and Youngster. Now I think something never just so much. They have also Shedang doing, but Lam to tell Samat and Hiji, oh, rugged the water with God and Chipa, oh, did the lady really cheat a Chipa Chilla? They got to Shedang on the Tato. They John Poat, the Talisola. Sancho the part of the super talk the data of some 3 new monk talk the jutty, Rory to jutty new monk talk in some. The simple thing to bring Chilla. The Tatalans in it, don't Sancho go to the poor and toy, but Sancho to be really the Gangi data or some things data and poor. Just in poor going to take his simple yori, the big poor. That's around the 3 years on top today. Chula and Rumable Lake, and they don't choose our chosen. Sabat said, I needed to my Jason, to joy on Maribella. They saw such a song and song, and song the Tapacha can now and shadow Bella. Yanda, Tom and Lomina, or mean in song that and song. Or Tarang the Pata to Pachiboyuna, Tapacha can let now. In songs of the Tongo. Oh, in songs of the song, in songs of the Minkan Chibo Tower, the secret of the lead of Jasa Tower, she comes down Tongo, your place tower, Ranga sent to Kishibo, Mato, Ranga sent with thoughts of the Mato, Sorrow music to buy on my head, Ranga and how what to buy with David. They told Jim Daly, Chicken, Sancho, named DJ, or they la list of women and you did who are in short daily. The DJ may better go, DJ may someone you might read, like Domator pay. The eight of the Domatra Araya can't so terrible or terrible. So now the carry Sancho Senatry, certain Jimba, certain Joba, Sluni Tela, so what the Don Divotia, Treasure Motoya, Tetaji, Jimba, the Trim Tower edge. Oh, the Tomati had started them. The Pamela at the family, you know, Gypsy Pamla, Panjil Material, Mr. Hudson, you don't want to for it, Petty. Some little you know, you pound it, immediately dropped it. Don't know what happened to them. Poor shit, oh, poor that I took on my head. Data of it is half on 3, and poor things happened to our head.
So the causal Phowa, the Phowa of karma, and that is connected to the Nirmanakaya poem as well, because the Nirmanakaya is connected to immeasurable compassion. And so there are actually 4 immeasurables: immeasurable love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And now, for as long as there is self-grasping, there will be the afflictive emotions. And the moment the 4 immeasurables arise, we have the cause for self-grasping to diminish. So in this sense, it is a Phowa, a transference, related to the cause. Actually, it is said that a person who possesses immeasurable love and compassion, that actually becomes the Phowa for them when they die. Then for them, actually, it's not even necessary to practice any other Phowa than just that love and compassion that they have. Because it is through love and compassion that one creates the perception, the appearances of the Pure Lands. So it is just according to how it is said in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, where it says that it speaks first about the cause of taking birth in the 3 lower realms. So the cause of taking birth as an animal is ignorance. The cause of taking birth as a hungry spirit is stinginess or greed. And the cause of taking birth in hell is hatred or anger. So the seeds, the causes for birth in the 3 lower realms are stinginess, hatred, and ignorance. And Thigden Sumgön had also said that cause and effect is the natural manifestation of one's moment-to-moment thoughts. He said that in the Gongchik. And now in this world, we can directly see the various manifestations of karma. And through seeing that directly, we can develop trust in karma. Now, when you understand that, you will feel that I do experience suffering and I do not want to experience suffering. For example, also in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, even if you have not done the slightest thing wrong, if someone were to cut off your head, you would take on that person's negativity, that person's misdeeds with compassion. So that is the practice of a bodhisattva. So it does happen sometimes that we are wrongly accused, even though we have not done anything wrong. People accuse us, and we are abused and we are harmed in many ways. For example, we have to go to prison even though we haven't done anything wrong. So how do we feel in that moment? Normally we feel that this is unfair. I haven't done anything wrong and I'm in prison for however many months or years. So normally we would get angry because we feel that we are treated unfairly because we didn't do anything wrong. But then what is the cause of being accused wrongly, even though you haven't done the slightest thing wrong? It is because of past karma. It can only happen because the accuser and you share a karmic connection from previous lives. It is that if you wish to know what you did in the past, look at your present body, your present life. So right now, karma is coming around, is coming back. So even though we say that we haven't done anything wrong, whatever suffering we experience is the result of things that we have done in previous lives. So we have done something wrong in previous lives. But then if we don't understand that, then we feel wrongly accused, we get angry. And if we keep getting angry over and over again, then we are over and over again creating the causes for taking birth in hell. So if one understands karma, then in that moment where that happens, then you would think about karma and you would think that this is because of my past karma. This is my karmic creditor. It is said, if you wish to know what you did in the past, look at your present body, right? So now I'm purifying all my negative karma. I'm purifying my suffering. So that's a good thing. So even though right now I haven't done anything wrong, I didn't do anything to harm, to hurt that other person, I am still wrongly accused because we share a past life karmic connection. And when you understand that clearly, then instantly your hatred, your anger will just go away. And you will actually rejoice in the purification of the negative karma. You would see it just like kind of healing a disease by undergoing a surgery. And instead of developing greater anger, what is transferred into your mind is bodhicitta. Because if you hold on to anger, you are creating causes for birth in hell over and over again. So you are actually deepening these propensities for going to hell more and more. So if you know karma, you will instantly recognize the fault of anger, and you will cultivate love and compassion, and you will rejoice knowing that you are purifying your negative karma by experiencing suffering. And actually your trust in karma will even increase. And in this way you free yourself from hatred. And so that is the Phowa of cause or of karma, understanding karma. And it is the transfer from this negativity to the positivity of bodhicitta and the 6 paramitas. Understanding that the 6 afflictive emotions are what lead to the appearance of the 6 realms of samsara. So through this Phowa, you develop great trust in karma. And right now, it helps you to cultivate, to transfer bodhicitta into your mind stream. And that's really the most supreme transference. It's to cultivate bodhicitta. So, in brief, to summarize, it is to recognize that whenever you encounter difficulties, to know that this is my karma. And that's actually, that knowledge is actually Phowa itself. That's the karma Phowa. And now we have the freedom to recognize that and to overcome that. And to overcome it by recognizing that it is karma, and then by cultivating bodhicitta and immeasurable love and compassion. And if that really arises within your mind, when immeasurable love right now arises in your mind, then actually, even if you would go to the 3 lower realms, first of all, you wouldn't go to the 3 lower realms, but even if you would, even the lower realms would appear like a pure land to you, because your mind is full with love and bodhicitta. And then likewise, it is also said the other way around. If you have those with a negative mind, even if they go to Akanishta, the highest pure land, they would see it as hell, as a lower realm, as suffering, as misery. And so it's all really the way we perceive things, how we see things. That is really what makes a pure land or the lower realms, the lower states of existence. So actually, if one understands that, if one understands karma, then even if one goes to the lower realms, one would see it as a pure land. One would see it, for example, as like a hospital where the sentient beings are healing or purifying their negative karmas and their obscurations. So you would see it really just like a pure land. So the mind is really what's most important. It all depends on how you see things in your mind. Nothing really exists inherently external from your own mind. Everything that you perceive really is the manifestation of your own karmic imprints, your own mind. It's your own perception. And if you understand karma, then trust in that increases, and you will make a greater effort in cultivating bodhicitta. So that's the supreme Phowa, and that Phowa needs to be practiced continuously, each and every day. It is just like each and every day you are washing your face and you are shaving your beard, and maybe you're putting on perfume and makeup and so on. So every day you do those things. And so similarly, every day you purify yourself by practicing generosity and ethical discipline, patience, diligence, and so on, which is just like getting your face ready and putting on perfume. So that's, for example, like generosity and ethical discipline. And then you're shaving and you're kind of like smooth, right? So that is ethical discipline, and that is diligence and so on. So in brief, these activities of purifying the mind continuously is what makes you be pleasant. These are activities where you give up harming others. Through these parameters, you give up harming others, and you accomplish the benefit of others. For example, that is explained in the precepts of taking refuge. That really actually explains the practice of the Phowa too. So the Phowa is not just this one certain kind of Phowa, transference of consciousness, but it is really, in a very broad sense, all of these methods. And so here, this is the Phowa of karma, or the causal Phowa. And actually, it begins with that. And if your understanding of karma is really clear, then your practice of Phowa in general will become much deeper.
따와 콘데 예미송 동담금이 그 가래 예미 이제들 예미 바차데 요래 선대식 좀 못해 그더니 차발 찹데 요래 빼는 잡을 가바스 사야방 보여는 로시 받을 적이 대다고 고아서는 샘당 로롱 대선인 고치바리 들이 최고 내력도 좀 하고 그러면서 세고 내력도 같을들이 주거지 때 마도 바탕에 들이 롱거다 적어서 내가 들이들 적어서 내가 봐야 돼. 그 코미니티니 로를 쭉 참아되고요. 대회는 조금 재미있게 보아들 내가 민다 마음이 개발들이 들이 감라 강절 때를 동바지 따뜻하려면 개වි진이 민배 민대바탕을 쫓겨지는 강에 사촉세 세체와 탐지를 쫓겨라고요. 나디 세체와 탐지를 호합하라고요. 대회를 들이다가 로아를 독참아 쫓겨가 공선되고요. 그들은 다들 장미하고 요래 사축세지 자세히 채워라더니 라마들 개비신이 데라서봐 고요래 들이 다 뉴모바 세세와라 다 로아를 내가 됐다고 했나요? 들이 다통 대식도 못했더니 콜라로 요말에 배는 이 성성대 수트거리에 이 성성대 또뭐 세나 계단성 그쪽거리에 돼 소리서든 아잘 차도 노차 아잘 차도서 소리서 음성 로아도 차들이 유모버를 해줄 멘탈 이제지 유모버 제사 이제지 셋대식이 뭐라 대라증 사지 좀 되게 샘지나면 상제니 있어 샘지나면 상제 샘 이제 대식 유모버도 요배 그리 대라 내가 우물장 로버를 좀 해줘 로버를 좀 하자리 가리 오 샘대식이 뭐 니스메 이시대라 이 다지 니디지 똑과 대리들은 유모버 독계래 내가 대처인 차롱도 차송 이때는 고아송 대회를 드리들 조금 재미 두기 보았으면 가자 마음이 배 유모버 톡딱 와타질을 드리들 라마 개비신이 답죠 야랑도를 드레라는들이 로치스 로치랑도 좋아하시 드리테랑 보지 대한 포화 차대도 오 차방 포화가 길이데 저의 포화 대도 하고나 좀 레리 지체는로 드리다다디 저의 포화 등이들이랑 그래 내가 들이 안 되라 바 메복왕을 쇼트들이 레박차사 요래 레박차 가래사 또 시즈도 바디 랑게 생분 내룩만 통해 다시 니지요 데라들이 뉴모부터 바디 이 뉴모부 지어들 남던 sem을 틈도 요래 오 며칠 다기인데 코리인데 가래시 어떻게 미상보리 어떻게 삼대 네가 버리 보면 때들 삼대 양 삼대 야파라고 그래 야 저도 봐도 코 자리시 다들이 좋은 동네들이 좋은 뭐들이 텔레들 시당들 차도 제요래 차도 때도 덤덤들 박차도 버림제 때에서 들이 처는 것들이 소가가로 오마로 자다 잠을지는 저도 가도 저도 배대다 내가 이제 내가 로를 운자 로를 좀 해줘 로를 받으리 뭐 로를 요소를 배 सब다시 뭐 차들을 가서 기타지 뭐 라서 가야지 나도 도고치 아실래 습 같은지 도요래 바로 도고치 습 같은지 도요래 야 멈추면 무슨 통마사들이 콩마 된다고 다다지 중지 거트들이 랍상 초아 요거래 바로 실로디 초아죠 다 뒤지 박차도 되게 요거래 오히려 로를 랩소벌이 이제는 박차도 요말이 이도 세고 내력지 시바고리 다 쭈거리들은 로를 줘서만 쭈거리했어 그래 쭈거 데르들이 탑나반사 소리들이 다다 라는 게 저희 포와 좀 제가 포와 라게 때다 라니 냠니 마오와 마토바 로바토바 가시가 때다 도바에서 노마토바 소담도바 어다 집리티 요사레서 대 탐제 오늘 소담도바 탐제나 이 마토바다 로바토바 탐제들이 다다 저거 테비 투지 보아도 그냥 보아로 들이 짜당 데라서바 우마테라서 딱보시라서바 요디라고 때잖아. 그거 재미 두기 보아들. 보아를 요리들은 이제 소가 보아되는. 랑 포토고 라는 보. 랑가 다다리 좀 제일란도로 만들어. 그냥 보아래. 이 대만이 받으면 다다 배는 나디 쳐보지는 또 인지 쳐보지는 샘지 쳐보다 인지 쳐보되겠다. 나디 봐 용토고요래. 이게 사바타 인지 그거. 사바 체미발 자기 가나에는 사바요. 데리들이 동해 강에서 남당들이 니게 듣고요. 대와 체미비 용 뛰는 그래서 다 포함다반 나서 출록다반 나서 요래. 그래서 포탑 나반 나서 요래. 얘랑 포사의 파체들이다. 사디가 밤에 탐지 쪽으로 보면 이 가시들이 이지대서 뭐 남시 라마와서 보 초송들 선들 라마곰들이 라마다 세예미가 내가 포하고 요만 죽은 포하도 그래 대민아들이 라마곰이 요래 예담곰이 요래 내라서 받아들들이 죽은 포하도 저저 로가자 봐 로가지 요래 그때라때 죽은 포 체비를 두게 포하 야매들 니제시고 그래 체비 사바 체비는 니제 뭐나 이 parte 바로 어디 semnabarchipater pasi ijili menjadi bapmoso dari zogniti yorma leka mameluti por semeluti mahile ni ngao nyabata na malam na ji ni do yore ti ngao nyabati ngadi ta pachate ti sabate ni chibo ti ke semle sabte una sabte deva tata rogo ngi wa ti mek thoma ta semle twa talam ji ro do je ge do 어디는 이제 sab지는 문제 제거도 대체 리오 말들이 셀지 몰라들이 sab지게 들이 다리 나디지 시작될 거 산속선 이제 돌아 그래 이제 대식 좀 보래 내가 로버트 맞고 나오 녀마한테 파셔게 줄 산속선 째라 들이 대도 대식 감나만 차도 그래 그 재미 특히 보아도 화가 너다 되자 그래
So the poem, the Nirmanakaya Phowa of immeasurable compassion, is also a very important poem that we need to understand. And so generally the view is that samsara and nirvana are inseparable, indivisible. So that is to be realized. Also in the context of the Nirmanakaya Phowa, on the ultimate level now. And so what that means is that on the basis which is Buddha nature, on that basis, everything is indivisible. And this basis, this Buddha nature, is all pervasive. And for example, it's like in the world, you might have millions of different phones, but it's one and the same electricity that powers all of these phones. It's the same source of power. So it's this power source that's all pervasive. And that is the mind, that is Buddha nature, that is all pervasive. So that mind is like electricity, or it is also like wind energy. So it is that when you realize the nature of your mind, there is no higher learning needed than that. And that realization really is the Dharmakaya or the Dharmakaya Phowa. And then the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya Phowa are mainly for those who have not realized that. And temporarily, especially, there is the Nirmanakaya appearing to us. And because it is said that the 6 realms of samsara are actually by nature all nirmanakayas. So that understanding is related to the Nirmanakaya Phowa of immeasurable compassion. So we all are nirmanakayas, all beings in the 6 realms. There's just a difference between, some are mature temporarily and some are immature. So temporarily immature and some are matured. So the Nirmanakayas, or the Buddhas, appear in whichever way necessary to benefit sentient beings according to their needs. So for example, the gurus, the spiritual masters, they are the matured Nirmanakaya, the ripened Nirmanakaya. And what is it that makes them be matured? It is bodhicitta. So we can say that all those with greater bodhicitta are the matured Nirmanakayas. And then all those who possess a stronger level of self-grasping, these are beings that we call samsaric sentient beings. but they're all nirmanakayas. All beings are nirmanakayas. Nirmana actually means emanation. So we are all emanation forms. Everyone is an emanation. And there's two kinds of emanations, basically, the mature and the immature. And that is determined by one's level of bodhicitta, of one's altruism. So those who have greater bodhicitta, like the spiritual teachers, are mature, and the sentient beings who are afflicted are the immature nirmanakayas, temporarily. But ultimately, they also possess Buddha nature, and Buddha nature will never be spoiled. For example, also the sentient beings in the three lower realms are nirmanakayas, they are turkus, emanations. And so what turkus are they? They are the turkus of, or the emanations of ignorance, of greed, and of hatred. And the beings living in the three higher realms are the turkus, or the nirmanakayas, of pride, of jealousy, and of attachment. So these six afflictive emotions have created the emanations in the six realms of samsara. But the basis of all those afflictions is one and the same, and they all arise ultimately from the ground of Buddha nature. And that's why the Buddha had said all beings are actually Buddhas, because all beings possess Buddha nature. And the Buddha said then, however, they are obscured by temporary or adventitious stains. So beings possess a Buddha nature, but then what is obscured is their non-dual primordial awareness. It is obscured by dualistic thoughts of self and other, which leads to the six afflictive emotions. And that causes the mind to temporarily appear like an ice block in water. So this is what the Buddha called samsara, samsaric beings. And for them, there is the nirmanakaya Phowa of immeasurable compassion. And so as we said, there is the mature and the immature. All those who are immature, these individuals have very thick layers of afflictive emotions. And for them, it is necessary that the spiritual teachers first train them in the understanding of karma and cause and effect. Now, to try to turn their mind toward the Dharma, and then to make that Dharma become the path. So that too actually is a Phowa practice. So actually, the understanding of karma naturally is a Phowa practice. So it is the causal or karma of Phowa. Through this, one's trust in karma increases. And so then temporarily, we do become unmindful, and with unmindfulness, we accumulate more karmic imprints. So what are these karmic imprints? And so first, the fundamental karmic imprint is the subtle obscuration or the cognitive obscuration, which is the obscuration from seeing the nature of the mind. And not seeing your true nature, you perceive dualistic existence of self and other. And that leads to this karmic imprint or the obscuration of the afflictive emotions. So then the afflictive emotions that arise in the mind, they are absorbed, like they dissolve in the mind. And so you mingle with them, identifying with them, and therefore you then begin to label. You think that this is me and he's him, and so you divide yourself from others. And then if you like somebody, then you think that, oh, he's a good person. I love him. Or he's my child, my daughter, my son. I love them. And however, this person, if somebody comes to harm you, oh, that's an enemy. He's terrible. So then you only see their faults, and you get angry at them, or you get jealous at them. And so this is how the karmic imprints grow stronger and thicker. It is just like first you have pure, clear water, and then you keep pouring different things into the water, like milk and tea and so on. And so slowly the color of the water changes temporarily. That's a temporary state. That's why the Buddha spoke about adventitious or temporary stains. So the afflictive emotions are only fleeting or temporary. They are not our true nature. They arise momentarily. For example, if you hear somebody say something really pleasant, and immediately your mind reacts to that with a positive emotion, positive feeling. Or when you just hear the name of a friend whom you love very much, immediately this pleasant feeling of love arises in your mind. And likewise, if there is someone that you don't particularly like, and you see that they're doing all kinds of things wrong and so on, so then if you merely see that person, then immediately you think about all the things that he has done before. And so then all the faults, this critical mind comes up in your mind. And so that's the imprint then that is placed into your mind. There's this instantly, the moment this feeling arises and you think about it, you are placing this karmic imprint into your mind. There's this feeling that arises. And because the basis of our minds is actually one, the other person also feels that feeling. So this is how we place imprints into the mind. These imprints that come from the feelings of happiness and sadness and so forth. However, these are all adventitious or temporary, so momentary obscurations. Really fundamentally, your true nature is never obscured by these karmic imprints. So it never becomes spoiled in any way. So through knowing your true nature, you understand the Nirmanakaya Phowa. You understand that everyone has that nature. Everyone in the 6 realms is a Nirmanakaya. So this particular Phowa that we just mentioned is just one method, one kind of Phowa, which is the karma or the causal Phowa. And when you understand it, then you also must put it into practice. So for example, there is some people who have some understanding, but not a complete understanding, so like a partial understanding. And some don't understand at all, a lack of understanding, and some have a corrupted understanding, like they misunderstand something. So for example, those who have a partial understanding, they might feel that, karma probably exists, so there's a kind of a partial understanding of that. And then there's those who misunderstand or don't understand. So for all of these individuals, they first need to be introduced to the first level of the Nirmanakaya Phowa. And then there's also different visualizations around that. For example, where we visualize the central channel and we learn about the qualities of the Pure Lands and so on. So this all belongs to the Nirmanakaya Phowa of immeasurable compassion. And then the Phowa itself actually is something that really is within, in your own hands. So it really depends on you. So if you follow the workings of karma, so the principle of karma, unmistakenly, then that in itself becomes Phowa, then you are practicing Phowa. Otherwise, there are some people whose self-grasping is particularly strong. But still, it can be destroyed. For example, if you have great compassion and you connect with that person that has a very strong self-grasping, because the basis of our mind is one, your great compassion has the power to diminish the self-grasping in the other person gradually. And so that requires immeasurable love and compassion. Immeasurable love and compassion involves seeing everyone the same. So there is no enemies, no friends, no one that you like more or less. So everyone becomes the same. So such a person who has immeasurable compassion, the moment they see someone suffering, immediately they will be able to help them. So that is the quality of immeasurable love and compassion. And so regarding the Phowa practice, as we said, there exist many different methods in the various traditions and lineages, but probably in most of the traditions, people meditate on the Buddha Amitabha. But also Jigten Sumgön had said that The supreme poem is to transfer the consciousness into the luminous heart of the guru. So that comes from realizing that the guru's mind and your own mind are inseparable. And actually, if you have realized that, then again, you have no need to practice any separate poem. And that actually is just like the Dharmakaya Phowa too. And otherwise, there's different methods such as visualizing the guru or visualizing the Yidam deity and so on. And these are basically methods where we know the guru or the deity help us to transfer the consciousness into the Dharmakaya ultimately. So then for the Nirmanakaya Phowa of immeasurable compassion, so if one actually practices Phowa for somebody else, for example, who has passed away, then first of all, the person who practices Phowa must have great compassion. And then there is the consciousness that has moved into the Bardo. And having moved into the Bardo, they have left behind their physical body. So now they only have the four aggregates of they don't have form any longer, but they have consciousness and perception, they have feelings and karmic formations, thoughts in the mind. So they have not yet found their future body and they have left behind their old bodies. So in the Bardo, the consciousness goes on just like in a dream. There still is this perception of me, this self. There still is the fixation, this grasping at an I. And so that is the karmic imprint that we're speaking about. And so a person who practices for them must have immeasurable love and compassion. And in this way, you establish a connection to them. And so in this sense, it also becomes like a karma Phowa. You have this connection to them. So for example, it is just like the way you connect, it is the reason why you connect to them with love is, for example, when you love someone very much and you just hear their name, immediately a feeling arises. And that feeling arises because of love. And even though there is no body, it is love really that goes to, connects to that being's mind and then destroys their self-grasping. And then when their self-grasping diminishes, their mind goes to the natural state, which is Buddha nature. So as we said, all the obscurations are just temporary. This temporary thought of an existing I then just diminishes when bodhicitta arises. And when bodhicitta arises, naturally the manifestation of the Pure Land will appear to one. So that is all the Nirmanakaya poem of immeasurable compassion. So this is how we practice it.
오 타르보리 다데 다자카는 통고요리 상고요리 돈다고 다 하고를 말해 세계적으로 그래서 차마 다 받아니 냠대요리 연락总统한테 저기 완리 받으리 오 핀칭 삼지는 제와 때라서 되니 때라 초와 가까이 돼야요리 때라 삼지 제요리 삼번 제와 삼지 제요리 이 삼지 너무 통을 확대 오 미디리 동마데 지 사티 초와 락벌게디 지 사티 초와서 타지는 거가 타지는 요 말이 타 저다로 릉나 당 사티 지도 체요리 당와차그 타 저다 니라양 내 중용지 이한 저고요리 베르데리 이 사티를 타지는 메바데 오 사티로 타지는 메데 이 가야기 여행 메바래 되더니 이제 신경 보고 참아 찾지 찍기 말 삼티를 핀중에 이디를 다다 유베 이 삼바 소탑절들이 그때 삼티 초와는 배나 타 가체를 리와트타만 보이는 미티 랑게 고 도마톤을 먹게 미쳐용 거리 때문에 너무 많던 애들이 샘도 뒤들이 라마들이 샘을 무지해도 먹히용 거리 那个中国人要的，伢子有把那你错这个要的，他人都不得的。这了这呢，这家里的上不就把么那能说，滚哪七八三八大个多的，你没偏听人把那的上街有呢，这了你把台上有呢，你上把车没把那这里那块个车了差不多了，三可能三个那块个车了，那就差不多有的。第一种上把个车吧，这里太热了，这里觉得你这吵有啊，这里样多，没这里那个上街车我这个有的。上街的到这个这里当地的线路有的，这种这里南边的这里上中城然后呢这里先看差了没有的，这里上街把没差有没有的，在港内的上街个先看他们上街个是有的，别下高嘛的，山多高嘛的，到罗松嘛不高嘛的，把没个先看是就改个是有的呢，个把长没上街长没不先看长没把偏了做啥在这里。소사 이나 더바가티 사업자 들어들이 사지가 모남들 수남들 저택들이 가리 로고들 사지 탐지게 오따 심지 모나 답체 지역들 지에트 모남들 로 감들 로고도 대 마더들이 소주는 것이 한국은 것들이 삽지바 맞서 지에도 하면도 사람들 용들 라래도 따티 모남 답체 지에서 감들 로고도 사지가 밤에 그때는 대화치는 누구치 서영을 대파스 찌라 대파치고 대파치들 몇 바트 찌라 이 모남도 들이 내가 찌로 그래 찌르들이 그들이 대화치는 쌈장 찌고 들이 까봐 사와 만보라들 쌈장들 또 다른 이냐면 찌를 깔려요 말 대타고 지금 찌고 죽으신 감성 그때 찌위 저스한테 사촉설에 들이 당부 생각도 저지 사촉설 그지요래 배샤그지요 말이 kalay jab ziyurman, chorchi ke ziyurman, sachok sebu ziyuri, tewere teri, teran rogol masala sachok sebu gogore, di sachok sebu sosol mewa yo, sosol ta padang chumala se, amara sachok mewa yore, nga amara chiwa mewa go yore, ta mette ta vizir ta karchi gore, ta sochi samche ge teri, ta samche ge togo samche teri, ta kote ta terori dogre, terori mata polo samche yore, 딱 아마로 sabte 또 들어올 독이 빌라 이거 될 상파티 hingi 쳐보지나 이 sabte 또 되게 샘이 이제 봐야 돼. 이 코디 다리 당디지 파 셔들이 차로도 차원으로 파는 이 셔고 배대다 이것도 배가 요래. 또 체배부터 좀 보아서 또다 니디오는 사바 체배 봐 거래. 이 사바 체배 받들 이 무슨 고속을 또 이제 또 거래. 너기 저도 나디 유모 버터 유모 이 식소를 때 너무 하와 탐지 식로 그래. 그래서 삼지 요들 대신 감탐지 샤트고 요래. 대신 감대 삼지 사지에 밤에 삼지 그지요래. 사속세고 요래. 대회를 들이다단 포악을 주지 땜들 때 이 나디를 때는 포악 습지 탐지 저사 촉선을 때는 다고 시간 로고를 샘들들이 나디 파 식래. 이 삼지 톱고 그래. 그때 왜 저거 재미도 좀 보아지. 이 보사양 밤에 이봐. 내와지 이마. 이 보면 봐라. 밤에 공부하지. 이 데려들이 동태려 밤에 공부 두티 데리. 이 데려는 보아들들이 이게 요 말이 출력 가래는 보아. 라는 출력 가래 팀 보아냐들이 초거래. 라바 가래는 대랑 게 저도 공 초거래. 라그 짜블라 많이 발라지 나바 사지에 바베지 짜블라마들 종용이 우보도 치면서 봐 희나 대양 대설 때 다상 소미면라 때 가고 요래 때를 사지에 바면 전나 줘서 그리고 짜블라마 기본 뭐처럼 보죠 그래서 오늘 그 짜블라마는 다상 대바오나 라마들 배 잡지 쪽까지나 라따지 곰 책다지는 청사고 이 뽑아글라만 수바타 저게 빠빠 라가 빠빠다는 들이 생활을 돌아가서 공을 까지는 이 말을 받아지 내들이 라마지 찰록 가릴 때 곰 줘서 밤에 젊고 송을 때 소말 안 한다는 들이 초갈 안 한 걸 라마지 봐 가리는 대장이 초고 다른 포화 이게 들이 각각 요 말 롱어띠 롱 소리를 안 한 거 리바티 포 롱톰이 초고 요래 또 때려야지.
So for the Nirmanakaya Phowa, what's most important is the relative bodhicitta, which in brief is immeasurable love and compassion. So for example, you, the disciples, you can see my face on the screen and I can see you. So then we can see each other and so we feel that we are together. And maybe you feel that, maybe you think that, well, we are actually far away and we're just seeing each other on the screen. But actually, if you really understand the actual Nirmanakaya quality, then you know that this is not true. And you know that there is a single basis of mind. It is just that some have realized that and some have not. So we have pure and impure aspects. But when we see somebody's body, then it is through the physical form that we see that we can connect to someone. So it is that one approaches through seeing the physical form. And then one remembers the bond of love that one has, and the special feeling arises within one just by seeing someone's body. So then, due to that, then love arises. So for example, we see each other's face and then the feeling of love arises. So you think that, that is him, and I love him, for example. And then actually you know that there is actually no closeness and no distance, really. There is just one. It doesn't matter how far we are. There is no distance within space. Actually, the fact is that actually sometimes the more far away we are, actually the greater our love is. And sometimes the closer we are, the smaller our love gets. And when we are very close, then we begin to see each other's faults too. Then we see faults and qualities. But in any case, when there is love, love really knows no distance. And Buddha nature is all pervasive. And so because Buddha nature is all pervasive, love is all pervasive. And so at the time when we still perceive a duality of self and other, it is love that is most important, that feeling of love that pervades. No matter how far we are millions of miles apart, there still is this feeling of love that arises. For example, when we see each other's face or hear each other's voice, maybe it brings some tears to your eyes. There's a special feeling that arises. Or when you see the face of the guru, or even if you don't see the face, if you just think of the guru, often a very strong feeling of devotion arises that brings tears to your eyes. Or if you remember a friend that you love very much, even if they're very far away, a very special feeling of love arises in your mind. So that all shows that the mind is really one. And in the prayer for excellent conduct, it says, the all-pervasive power is the power of love. And so if we have that, if we have love for one another, immeasurable love, then that love is all pervasive like space. Because we say that mind pervades like space, so naturally, if we have immeasurable love, it also pervades like space, wherever space pervades. And so for this reason, we are actually always very close. And when we understand that, then our dualistic perception becomes more and more subtle. It diminishes. And if we think about it, if that kind of normal love is so powerful, then imagine the power of actual bodhicitta. It really has the power to completely destroy self-grasping. And then the Pure Lands, like Devachan and the Pure Land, so the Pure Land of Buddha Amitabha and Buddha Amitabha himself, are all the natural manifestations of bodhicitta. And all the Pure Lands are created from all the Buddha's love. In order to create a Pure Land, you don't need any money, you don't need to work hard, there's nowhere to go. The Pure Land is created through love, through bodhicitta. And this is how all the limitless Buddhas have created the limitless Pure Lands. And so then the Buddha Amitabha then intended to create the Pure Land of Devachan, and to do so for countless aeons, he accumulated merit by, for example, offering the 7 branches, such as prostration to limitless Buddhas in limitless Pure Lands. And he made an aspiration saying that there must be a Pure Land where sentient beings can be reborn if they only pray. At that time, such a Pure Land did not yet exist. So at that time, all the Pure Lands required, so to be born in any of those Pure Lands, it would require one to have attained at least the 8th Bodhisattva Bhumi. So it really depends on, it would have really depended on developing great qualities of the Bhumis and the paths. But the Buddha Amitabha made an aspiration prayer that even ordinary sentient beings, even sinful sentient beings, if they have devotion, if they have faith, and if they pray, they can be born in that Pure Land. There must be such a Pure Land where even those ordinary beings can be born. So that was the Buddha Amitabha's aspiration for creating the Pure Land of Devachan, of great bliss. And so that was eventually then created in the past. And so now even beings who only pray can be born there. It requires the least difficulty to be born in this Pure Land. And it is also related to it is also a Nirmanakaya Pure Land, really, because the cause of birth is also related to bodhicitta, to the aspiration. So again, any Pure Land is created from bodhicitta and not from money or hard work or kind of machines and so on. If you want to go to a Pure Land, you have to cultivate bodhicitta. And so that is what we are lacking. We are lacking in bodhicitta. Many people even find it hard, or maybe most people's love is limited maybe to their children or their wife, but some even don't even love them. There's even some people who have said that they don't love their mothers. So what can you do when you meet somebody like that? So then you feel compassion for them and think that this is a really very pitiful being, because even an animal knows how to love their mother and their child. Even animals do that. So in that sense, that person is worse off than even an animal. So actually you would feel an even greater compassion for such a person. But then in the end, also that person's mind and your mind have a single basis, and therefore through the power of love and compassion, you can help them destroy their self-grasping. So this love becomes just like hot water being poured over an ice block, and the ice block will just melt, and you have benefited them. So that is also the Nirmanakaya Phowa of immeasurable compassion. So when immeasurable love arises within you, so now when we are still in a context of perceiving a dualistic existence of self and other, that is when we cultivate immeasurable love. And through immeasurable love, we can directly benefit others by eliminating their suffering and the cause of their suffering, their self-grasping mind, and help them to cultivate a loving mind. And if love arises, then that is what will create the Pure Land. And so this is also how the Buddha Amitabha had created the Pure Land of Devachan. It is created through his love, through his bodhicitta. So these are the causes and conditions, or the auspicious interdependence of causes and conditions that create the Pure Land of Devachan, or any Pure Land. And so self-grasping is what creates sentient beings. Bodhicitta is what creates the Pure Lands. If you want to go to a Pure Land, you have to eliminate self-grasping by cultivating love. So that in essence is the Nirmanakaya Phowa of immeasurable compassion. And so then the place of transference is the Buddha Amitabha's Pure Land of Devachan. And there is a visualization. We visualize Amitabha, and so on. But so today, for today's Phowa instructions, we are not following a sadhana, a text. You can use any Phowa text in any tradition. You can visualize any guru at the crown of your head. So any tradition is fine, it doesn't make a difference. The guru that you visualize above your crown is in essence the root guru, and in appearance the Buddha Amitabha. So that is because we visualize the Buddha Amitabha, because when we see the ordinary form of the root guru, that could have qualities but also have faults. Especially if we cling to the guru, see the guru in like an ordinary, concrete, kind of substantially existing way. And so especially if we do not cultivate an unbiased mind of a pure perception, seeing everything is equal, then in particular it will be very difficult. And so that's why we change the form to the form of the Buddha Amitabha. But then actually my own root guru, Khenpo Minso Rinpoche, has said that if you really have great faith and great devotion to the guru, and if you have great pure perception, then you can visualize the guru even in his ordinary form, whatever he's wearing. For example, if he's wearing like a goat's skin as a cloak or so, or whatever, like cotton cloth, like milarepa, whatever he's wearing, whichever way he appears normally, you can visualize him also in this way. But in any case, you can visualize any guru according to any lineage. You can use any sadhana text according to any lineage. So that's why we are also not using a text today. And so for the transmission, the lung of any text, so it's also fine to have received the transmission of any Phowa tradition. And now, Dharma friends, please take a rest for 20 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. Sangha, Namo Sangaya.